And welcome everyone in this session. It's Marcel here. As I said yesterday, in this session, there will be two topics. The first topic will be question answering about the trading plan, because I saw that some of you guys had a question about the trading plan, about counter trend trades, about pro trend trades, and you'll be able to ask these questions here in this live sessions because it's much easier to answer them in a live session than in a chat. And after that, I will just break down the charts from the 4 hour, starting from the 4 hour to the 1 minute. And I will make some predictions, some expectation order flows that we can expect in the upcoming days, weeks. And we'll talk about the possible scenarios for this session too in the lower time frame. So yeah, let's just start the session with the question and answer section. And as I ask you guys, I ask you to write down the questions for yourself and ask these questions in this session, because as I said, you had lots of questions about the trading plan and the trading plan webinar. Can you hear the background? Because they are drilling now. Can you hear anything? No? Okay, that's fine.
Yes, all good, all good.
Oh, good. Okay, so let's just start with the question and answer about the trading plan. Trading plan Q. I don't know how to buy and how does something like this. Okay, so trading plan question and answer. What will be the first question? Please, if you like to use your microphone, just raise your hand. And you can also write the question down in the chat too. So please let me hear your questions about the trading plan, because please guys, ask these now, because it's much easier for me to answer these questions in this session and not outside of the session in a chat. So what will be the first question about the trading plan, webinar that I just hosted last week? Guys? Did anyone write down any question yesterday? Guys? Okay, let me just ask here. Have you got any question about the trading plan? Guys, literally, on last week, I received 10 or 15 questions about the trading plan. Ask those questions now in this session, please. Don't be shy, just ask those questions. Okay, never mind. So you don't have any questions, it's fine. Hey, Tommy, are you letting people in from the trading room?
Yeah.
Because I can see 5 people are in the waiting room. Crystal clear. Okay. So I'm just, okay. So if you have no questions, then I will just start the breakdown. I will just start the top analysis. Nicholas. Okay. Nicholas, raise your hand. What's the question, Nicholas?
Hi, Marcel. Hi, everyone. My question is about for confirmation entries. You always wait for shock in lower time frame after touching a point in higher time frame?
Yeah.
Or how can you detect the confirmation entry and you can take it?
So what the question is exactly here? I'm always waiting for a confirmation entry. Not always, 95% of the time. I'm waiting for a confirmation entry on the higher time frame zones.
Okay, so, but you wait for the change of character in lower time frame when you're in the higher time frame point?
Of course I do. Okay, there are a few confirmations. For a daily zone, you need a 4 hour confirmation. You need the 4 hour change of character. For a 4 hour zone, you need the 15-minute change of character. For a 50-minute zone / a 5-minute zone, you need a 1-minute change of character. These are the confirmation of time frames. But this has been explained in the fractal time frame, fractal time frames webinar.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. In the continuation webinar, you said it is a base criteria that price cannot come from unmitigated zone. Is it still up to date? Chilling markets, as I said you yesterday, backtest your own thing, backtest the scenarios, gather data about the things you see on the charts. And as I explained it in yesterday's recap, in a pro trend trade, you're going to have lots of supply taps. For example, if the pro trend is bullish, you're going to have loads of supply tabs. Just the way I explained it yesterday, you're going to have loads of supply tabs, and these supply tabs will leave your retracement. But let's assume that this is the 15-minute time frame. So this is the 15-minute time frame right here, and the 1-minute time frame on the last recent 2 legs. So on the last recent 2 legs will look like this. You will have this bearish structure on this leg. Which leg? Sorry. Okay, let me just remove. So you have this 15-minute bullish structure on the last recent 2 legs. So on this leg and this leg, you're going to have this kind of a structure, right? This kind of a structure. Here, you're going to have a 15-minute zone tap. The pro trend on the 15-minute chart is bullish, right? So this is the bullish pro trend on the 15-minute chart, creating series of higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher low, creating breakout structures over and over again. If this 15-minute zone is being tapped, what can we expect? We can expect the continuation of the bullish trend, right? So this is the 15-minute zone. Here's the 15-minute zone too. 15-minute zone is being mitigated. After the 15-minute zone mitigation, you can expect the continuation. You can expect the change of character and the continuation of the bull trend on the 1-minute chart. So this leg right here, which will print a series of higher highs and higher lows, will be the pro trend trade. And this leg will look like this on the 15-minute chart again. Okay, so how does this look like? This bearish leg right here looks like this on the 1-minute chart. And you're going to have loads of supply tabs, loads of irrelevant supply tabs over and over again, you're going to have supply tabs. But the only purpose of these supply tabs is to collect more liquidity, is to collect orders at this region, to collect sell orders. And after the sell orders have been opened, it will be the liquidity to fuel the longs. Why? Why can we use this concept? Because simply the overall pro trend trade on the 15-minute chart and the 1-minute chart has turned into bullish. If the 15-minute trend lines up with the 1-minute trend, you'll be able to execute these kind of trades. And if the 15-minute trend lines up with the 4-hour trend, you don't really want to care about the supply tabs, because these supply tabs will be only liquidity collections. These are only liquidity collections, collecting liquidity on the supply tabs, creating double taps, creating triple taps, liquidity for the upcoming longs. This is how the structure works. This is what I explained in yesterday's recap too. And yeah, of course, it's a -1 criteria, because if it's a continuation trade, for example, here's this supply, price mitigated this supply zone, flips this supply, here's a flip zone, here's this demand that flipped this supply zone. Then after the flip, right here, price mitigates another supply zone. This will be liquidity collection. This will be a simple liquidity collection, because price collects liquidity, collects orders here, and orders will sit above this line. And if these orders are sitting above this line, then these orders will be the liquidity to fuel the upcoming longs, starting from this demand zone. This is how a pro trend continuation scenario looks like, right? Because 4-hour lines up with the 15-minute chart, 4-hour bullish, 15-minute bullish, 1-minute turn into bullish after the 15-minute zone tap. What can you expect? You can expect the continuation of the whole bullish overall pro trend on every single time frame. And these supply taps will be only liquidity collection purposes. But for example, if you're trading the counter trend, if price steps into an opposite sided zone in a counter trend trade, that will be less probable to play out. But if it's a pro trend trade and every single time frame is bullish, then you have a much higher chance to continue the overall trend after tapping into an opposite sided zone on a random 1-minute opposite sided zone. Because if you take a look at this kind of a structure, this is only liquidity. Also in itself, it's liquidity. This is how it works. This is how the pro trend works. This is how the fractal timeframes work. But these have been combined together in the webinars. Just don't overcomplicate things. Just think logically. Think how the trend is working. Think how price is moving. Think what you can expect. And just combine the time frames together. Don't live on the 1-minute chart. If you're living on the 1-minute chart, you're going to see supply and demand taps over and over again, because this is how a 1-minute chart looks like. You're going to have this kind of a structure on the 1-minute chart. Simple noise. Without a higher time frame perspective, this will be a simple noise. And there will be demand taps, supply taps, demand taps, demand taps, supply taps, demand, supply taps, everywhere on the 1-minute chart. Because this is a noise without the higher time frame. But if you know the higher time frame intentions, the higher time frame directions, you'll be able to trade on the 1-minute chart for confirmation purposes only, right? You're only using the 1-minute chart for confirmation purposes, nothing else. 1-minute chart is a confirmational time frame. You don't care about the 1-minute zone taps. Mainly, you don't care about the 1-minute zone taps because these are irrelevant. You want to combine the higher time frame zone taps with the 1-minute confirmations, and that's where you will get the highest probability setups. You're overcomplicating things every single day, and You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. Just focus on the higher time frame perspective. Trade with the higher time frame trend. Trade with the order flow on the higher time frame. And if you're trading on the higher time frame order flow, trading with the higher time frame order flow, you're going to execute high probability setups. That's why I opened yesterday that trade. That's why I opened yesterday that long trade, because price was coming from a 4-hour supply zone, but built up a bullish 4-hour structure, built up a bullish daily structure, built up a bullish 15-minute structure. And basically, this was the 4-hour trend. This was the 4-hour trend on the 15-minute chart. This was the trend, right? So this was the trend on the 15-minute chart. This is how it looked like. And price was just coming up to the supply zone, mitigated the supply zone, and mitigated the 50% of the supply, swept some liquidity into the supply right here at this region. There was a tap. And after the tap of the supply, price couldn't even break below the last recent 15-minute zone. If a 4-hour zone can break below a 15-minute zone and gives a reaction rate, then there's a high chance that this 4-hour zone will be weak. Why? Because if a 4-hour zone can break a 15-minute zone, that means that simply that 15-minute zone that lines up with the trend will be much stronger than that 4-hour zone. And that's why I opened the position here. I couldn't catch the first change of character entry. I was looking for scaling entries. What happens on this leg? On this leg, on this pullback leg of the 15-minute structure, this is how it will look like on the 1-minute chart. This is how it looks like on the 1-minute chart. But there's this 15-minute demand zones. There's the 15-minute demand zone. And if price steps this 15-minute demand zone, there's a high chance that it will create a change of character. And if it creates a change of character, then it validates that the supply will be weak and the 15-minute demand will be strong and the trend will be continued. If there's a change of character, there will be an entry opportunity. If the entry opportunity is being missed, then you can expect continuation scenarios, for example, a flip of this zone. If price comes up to the flip to this zone, which was in this case a really strong zone because we had liquidity below it, we had perfect liquidity line sitting below it, price flat liquidity into this zone. This liquidity wasn't strong enough to actually create a change of character. The supply tap wasn't strong enough to create a change of character. And in itself, the supply was strong because it has flipped the variable zone. It has been explained in yesterday recap. I won't explain it again. It has split the variable zone. It had liquidity below it. And if this supply can't even reverse price and can't create a change of character, then, and if price flips this zone, after a flip, you'll be able to take continuation entry on this demand zone. Why? Because it lines up with the pro trend trade. Mute yourselves, guys, please. Just mute your microphones. You'll be able to take continuation trade because if the last recent really valuable zone is being broken, then it doesn't really matter if price steps into another supply zone. It doesn't really matter if it mitigates a supply zone because this is lining up with the pro trend. This is just liquidity in the counter trend. Trade with the trend, not against the trend. Ignore the 1-minute random zones. Ignore the 1-minute noise. Focus on the higher time frame. Focus on the higher time frame, high probability setups. Because the first trade wasn't in my side. There's no further explanation needed. I just didn't take the trade. So let's just start the overall breakdown of this chart. Okay. So here's the 4-hour chart. Okay, what do we know about the 4-hour chart? The price is moving an extremely bearish trend in the past few weeks, past few months, right? This is what we know. And we already know that price has mitigated the demand zone from 2002. This was a 2002 demand zone, weekly demand zone that price has just recently mitigated. Here was the 1,00000 psychological level, created liquidity on this level. As you can see, 1 bottom, 2 bottom, 3 bottom, perfect triple bottoms. Price fed the liquidity, mitigated the demand zone. And after this huge psychological level sweep and reversal, price has just started to form a bullish structure. Okay, on the 4-hour chart, it's unarguably bullish. It has started into bullish. Why? Because price has just changed character here to the upside. This was the last recent high point that has created a last recent breakout structure with body closure here to the downside. After the break of this high point, that was a change of character. Okay, what has happened after this? Price has just mitigated this supply zone up here. That was basically the origin of this bearish order flow, bearish leg here. Price has just flipped this zone also. As you can see, there was the flip of this zone. And after a flip of this zone, what has happened? Price has just swept huge amount of liquidity into another valuable supply zone. So this was another valuable supply zone. This is a really, really valuable supply zone because it flipped another weekly demand zone. There, somewhere around here, there was a weekly demand zone. There was a reaction. And this supply zone has flipped this weekly demand zone and had liquidity below it, right? As I always say, every single time frame is lining up. Every single time frame is correlated. Why? You can see the exact same scenario on the 4-hour chart here, like we did on the 1-minute chart yesterday, where I took the trade. So here was the demand flip. This supply zone has flipped a really valuable demand zone, right? So how did the trade look like yesterday? We had a demand zone, we had a supply zone that has flipped that demand zone, and after this, prices created liquidity for this supply zone. Sorry, created liquidity for this supply zone. How does this 4-hour structure look like? The exact same. Weekly demand zone, flip of this weekly demand zone from this 4-hour supply zone, the exact same liquidity creation below it, liquidity creation on the 1-minute chart too, continuation, and after this, what happens? Price sweeps a decisional supply zone that is part of the liquidity on the, yep. Okay, never mind. Let me just find the 1-minute chart from yesterday. It will be cleaner if I show you that. Let me just find it real quick, somewhere around here. Where was, yeah, that was the supply zone. Here was a supply zone that has flipped the demand zone at this region. This was a 5-minute demand zone also, but I will just mark it on the 1-minute chart. Here we had liquidity below it, perfect liquidity, as you can see, liquidity below it, supply that is part of the liquidity here. So we can't open a limit order on this supply zone because it's part of the liquidity. And yeah, here was another continuation break of structure to the downside, just like on the 4-hour chart. Let me just copy and paste this chart, please, on the 4-hour chart. Bear with me, please. This will be really, really interesting. Okay, so here's the 4-hour and here's the 1-minute. The exact same thing has happened. Here was a demand zone also. Here was a demand zone also, because this was a weekly demand zone. I won't go back. I won't find this demand zone. Just trust me, there was a demand tap. We all know that there was a demand tap. So the demand has been flipped, right? Here was the supply that has flipped the demand with inefficient movement. Supply zone, inefficient movement, flip. Supply zone, inefficient movement, flip. Exact same scenario. Liquidity creation below this valuable sub. Please mute yourselves. Don't interrupt me when I'm talking. So, okay. Liquidity creation below this supply zone, liquidity creation below this supply zone. Continuation break of structure, continuation break of structure. Here was a demand mitigation right here. Here was a demand mitigation. After this, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mark it. Here was a demand mitigation, but we all know that this was the demand point. After the demand point price, I just changed character. We all know that there was a demand mitigation because I showed you that in yesterday's recap video. So demand mitigation, continuation. After demand mitigation, change of character, tap of this decisional supply zone that is part of the liquidity, tap of this decisional supply zone, flip of this supply zone, tap of this supply zone, here's a reaction to flip of this supply zone. Supply tap that is above the liquidity. So the less recent valuable supply zone that we care about is this one, because this is the less recent valuable supply zone that would flip a demand zone and had liquidity below it. So this is the only relevant and valuable supply zone for us. So on the 4-hour chart, there's the exact same supply zone. There's the exact same supply zone on the 1-minute chart too. Exact same scenarios happened. Exact same liquidity flip has happened. Liquidity flip has happened. And mitigation of the supply zone has happened here on the 1-minute chart too. And after this, price has just flipped this supply zone after tapping into it. And as you can see, here was a flip. Here was the entry opportunity that I just took yesterday. And what can we see on the 4-hour chart? The exact same scenario is being formed. The exact same scenario we can see on this. Price has just mitigated this supply zone. The small pullback has started, and if price can flip this supply zone from here and break above this supply zone, then we'll be able to take continuations from this demand zone up to the next supply zone. We had the next supply zone here on the 1-minute chart too, which I was targeting with the longs too. Exact same scenario can be found on every single time frame. This is just creepy how similar these charts look, right? The 1-minute chart looks exactly the same as it looks like on the 4-hour chart. The exact same chart, the exact same pattern, the exact same liquidity scenarios can be found on both of the 1-minute chart and 4-hour chart. So what are the conclusions here? That we can expect the exact same thing on the 4-hour chart, just like on the 1-minute chart. And you don't have to be scared that it's a 4-hour and it's printing candles really, really slowly. You don't have to be scared. You just have to apply the same concepts here on this 4-hour chart, just like you apply it on the 1-minute chart. The exact same concepts are going on for the 4-hour, like for the 1-minute chart. These timeframes are correlated. As you can see, it's literally just creepily similar to each other. So, okay, now that we talked about this, someone just raised their hand. Takudzwa, why did you?
Yes.
Hey, bro.
Thank you. I wanted to ask here on this 1-minute time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I did was I was expecting to see a sell here at this region. So what I did is I took an entry at the 50% level. So my question
on which
is,
supply zone? What do you mean? Which supply zone?
on this 1 minute supply zone.
Okay.
So what I did is I opened the trade here. So my question is, was I supposed to wait for a confirmation?
Yes,
first?
of course. You should have, because there was a 50-minute demand mitigation.
Okay.
The 50-minute demand mitigation that I just explained. This is how the trend was looking like. This is how it worked. This is how it moved. Demand mitigations over and over again. And price came back to this demand level, the last recent 50-minute demand level. And this was the last recent 50-minute demand level right here. And price was just coming from this demand level, and created a bullish structure, started to continue the bullish structure. So there was a 50-minute demand mitigation, and this was a 1-minute supply zone. More likely this 50-minute will be stronger than this random 1-minute supply zone, simply because it's following the main trend. The bullish is the main trend. So yeah. Okay. Let me just continue on the 4-hour chart. Let me just tell you the expectations that we could see in the upcoming days and weeks on the EUR/USD chart. So now that we know that price has just turned into bullish, partly because supply took over control, partly at this mitigation, what can we expect? We have a bias decider demand zone down here. Why do we call this zone, this demand zone down here, as a bias decider? I'm just asking you, if you can answer, please raise your hand. Why is this demand zone a bias decider? Why will this demand zone decide that the trend will be bullish or bearish? If you know the answer, please just raise your hand. Michael?
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, bro.
Yeah. So because if price breaks that demand, then that will be a confirmation for sales. So that will be a confirmation for the 4-hour supply that is valid.
Exactly. And what could be the other scenario on this demand zone?
So the price will come down to the demand zone, and then it will break the supply to the upside.
Exactly. Thank you for your answer. These are the two scenarios that we can expect on this demand zone on the 4-hour chart currently. Why? The reason is simple. The reason is simply the battle between the supply zones and demand zones. Now we know that price took over control here on the weekly chart and on every single time frame, and the bullish trend is in control. It's creating change of character, supply breaks over and over again, right? Price has just mitigated this supply zone up here recently. This supply zone has took over control partly, but bullish is still the main structure, because this is the range high, this is the range low, but the supply has gave us a pullback. The supply has gave us a pullback and started a downside structure here on the 15-minute chart too. Okay, so if price taps this 4-hour demand zone down here and creates a change of character inside of this 4-hour demand zone, then there will be a really high chance that price will break above this supply zone. Why? Simply because the battle between the supply and demand. If this supply can take this demand out, then this demand will be stronger and this supply will be weak. If this supply can take this demand out and break below this demand zone, then this supply will be strong, supply will be fully in control, and this demand will be weak because it will be broken. If it breaks, then there will be a new supply zone formed. We can expect a reaction on this supply zone. We can wait for confirmation entry, and we can ride the short trend down to the next recent daily demand zone, or 4-hour demand zone, sorry, which will be this one. This is how a structure looks like. This is what we can expect on this demand zone. This is a really bias decider demand zone, because everything will be decided on this one. If price can hold and price can reverse on this demand, then the bullish structure will be continued. And if the bullish structure is being continued, then we can expect the mitigation of this supply zone up here. If this demand zone can hold and this structural high point and supply zone will be broken, then we can 100% expect the mitigation of this supply zone up here, or even the supply above it, because it's part of the liquidity. So if this supply breaks and this demand holds, then we can see the mitigation of this supply or this supply up here. But if this demand breaks, if price breaks below this demand zone, then we'll see the continuation of the bearish structure. Why? Simply because the supply that had liquidity below it was stronger than this bullish attempt. And if the supply is stronger than this bullish attempt, and the supply can change character and break the last recent 4-hour demand zone, then the trend will be continued to the downside, and we'll see further short continuations, and we'll have a chance to see the break of this demand zone too, which will be extreme because, you know, at this region, 1 euro costs less than $1. So it's a bit strange, a bit unbelievable, but this has a chance to happen. My prediction, I don't know. I don't really know which will happen. We have to see. We don't have to predict. We just have to react on this zone. If any kind of confirmation, either if it's a break, either if it's a change of character will happen on this demand zone, then we'll be able to trade based on that confirmation, break, change of character. But if this demand zone won't be tapped, we don't have to predict what will happen. There's a chance that price will reverse on a random 50-minute zone here without tapping into this 4-hour zone. All we have to do is react. All we have to do is monitor what price is doing. But currently the 4-hour chart is telling us this. If this demand zone will be tapped, there will be 2 outcomes of this demand zone. The break of this supply or the break of this demand. These are the 2 outcomes of this demand zone. Okay, so that's all about the 4-hour chart. A lot of liquidity in that demand zone though. You mean in this one? We'll see on the 50-minute chart. We'll see what will happen. Why don't you take the area around demand zone because of liquidity? Yeah. This is liquidity. This isn't liquidity. So let's just see the 50-minute chart. We know what we can expect on the 4-hour chart. We know what to wait for on the 4-hour chart. But in the meanwhile, you don't have to wait for this zone to be tapped. This is not the only option to trade from. This is not the only option. We have to switch to the 15-minute chart. More likely, we'll be able to take short continuations down to this demand zone. That will be a counter trend trade. And yeah, let me just switch to the 15-minute chart because that could be a pro trend trade too. Why? Simply because the way I explained it in the plan building webinar and in the trends webinar. So the 4-hour trend is bullish, right? So the 4-hour is printing higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, expectational higher low. This is how the 4-hour looks like. But the 50-minute has just changed character here to the downside, meaning the 50-minute trend is bearish, right? So trading with the 50-minute order flow, short, 50-minute pro order flow is short now, will be the pro trend trades for us. So executing short trades down to this demand zone will be a pro trend trade. But as it was written down in the PDF, this kind of a pro trend trades has less more probability to play out than the overall fractal confirmation, fractal time frame trend, right? I won't explain it again. I just explained it in that webinar. Please just watch that webinar again. But what can we expect on the 15-minute chart? Here was the supply tap. This supply tap, this 4-hour supply tap, has changed character here to the downside on several places, here, here, and here. So a 50-minute change of characters happened. If a 50-minute change of character happens, then we can expect the pullback down to the last recent 4-hour region. This 4-hour region is the exponential higher low point on the 4-hour chart, right? Why? Because this is how the 4-hour structure looks like currently. This is the demand zone that we are talking about. This is the demand zone right here. This was the supply tap. If this demand zone is being tapped, this is the exponential higher low point because the structure looks like this. This is how the structure, this is how the bullish structure works. Expectation higher low point after mitigation and confirmation, expectation higher high point. But in the meanwhile, as I said, we can trade between this supply zone and between this demand zone, and we can trade the pro trend shorts down to this demand zone. We'll be able to execute short trend trades based on supply taps and based on supply confirmations. So let me just talk about the zoomed in picture. Let me just zoom in and talk about this kind of a region. So here we had a change of character. A strong change of character has happened here, right? With body closure. Basically, a strong change of character has happened from this supply zone here with a huge inefficient movement. Okay, so this supply zone was the cause of the strong change of character to the downside, and this supply zone was the cause of the liquidity sweep to the downside too, right? We had liquidity, first bottom, second bottom, third bottom, liquidity line, swept from this supply zone, change of character from this supply zone. So yeah, this is a really valuable 3 criteria. Supply zone, it had inefficiency too. But we can also see from the new, London markups that price has created a range, right? Here was a range on the upside, liquidity range on the downside. And by simply just sticking to the range sweeping concept, if there's a range, if there's a simple range where price is creating liquidity trend line on the upside and triple bottoms on the downside, so liquidity, and if the upside is being set first, and as you can see with this candle, price has just swept all of the liquidity from above this liquidity trend line, If the upside is getting swept first, and sorry, let me just switch to the arrow, and the downside is getting swept second, then we can expect the continuation of the bear trend, right? This concept has been explained several times. We already know how this works, and this is how it works. Upside range first, sweep. Upside range, sweep first. Downside range, sweep second. Continuation of the bearish structure. This is what we can expect here. And the sweep has happened from this supply zone here. If price can reverse up to this supply zone and create a retracement up to this supply zone, then we can expect a continuation and confirmation on this 50-minute supply zone. That was the cause of the change of character and the cause of the downside range sweep. So if this supply is being tapped, we'll be able to execute short trades on this supply zone. Perfect plan. We only need 1 minute confirmation on this supply zone, and we only need a weak change of character. Why? Because this is our pro trend now. The 50-minute pro trend is bearish currently. This could be our pro trend trade, and the simple change of character is needed on this supply zone. What can be the target? Obviously, this demand zone down here, because above this demand zone, we can't really find a really good 50-minute demand zone in this region. Basically, the whole inefficient movement has started from this 4-hour zone. So I will just stick with this demand zone. Okay. So let me just check if there was any demand tap right here in this region. No, I won't consider this a demand zone. This will be a demand zone. So price just reverse in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, price didn't mitigate this demand zone. Price is reverse in the middle of nowhere. So technically, this is liquidity. This is being considered liquidity. This bottom right here is liquidity built up for the upcoming short. So the 50-minute order flow plan is to wait for this supply zone. If this supply zone is being tapped, we can wait for a confirmation, continuation. This is how the 50-minute plan looks like. But we're going to have another perspective on the 5-minute. More likely, we're going to have another 5-minute zone somewhere around here or somewhere around here, where we can expect a confirmation and continuation. But we have another scenario on the 15-minute chart too. If price won't tap this 15-minute zone up here, but creates another break of structure to the downside, then we are going to have another supply zone where we can expect another reaction and confirmation. If this happens, we are going to wait for another supply tap and continuation to the downside, targeting this demand zone. If this supply is being tapped first, we are going to wait for a confirmation on this supply zone and continuation to the downside. This is how it looks like. This is what we can expect on the 15-minute chart. Let me just read the chat because I saw that lots of you guys were asked something. Why don't you take the, yeah, that I read. Marcel, where's your last 15-minute strong high? Is it 9:50 a.m. or 11:30 a.m.? No, this isn't the last. This is the last. This is the last strong high because this could have created this huge inefficient movement. So basically, the strong high is on this supply zone. The strong high will be this one. This supply zone is just part of this bearish leg, but the high of this movement is this one. This is the extreme of this movement. So yeah, this is the strong high. If this strong high breaks, then that will be a strong high break. This isn't a strong high. If this supply breaks, then we'll still have a chance to see a confirmation on this extreme zone. But yeah, if this breaks, then that will be a strong high break. Can I mark the weakest supply zone? This one. If it can break structure to the downside, then no. If it breaks structure to the downside, then yes. But yeah, of course, we have another scenarios too. If price comes back up to the supply zone, flips this supply zone, then will be a demand zone that has flipped this supply, and we can expect continuations to the upside. But we won't talk about this right now because the signs are showing bearish pressure. Every single sign is showing us bearish pressure, and we can expect a bearish pressure continuation to the downside. And I'm not expecting the break of this supply zone up here. But if it breaks, I will send you updates. I will send you updates about the upcoming possible scenarios. But right now, we only care about these bearish structure movements because this is what lines up with our plan. This is what lines up our structure. So switching to the 5-minute chart. On the 5-minute chart, we can see the exact same thing, no refinement. So basically, the 5-minute chart is exactly the same. Let me just check if there was any demand mitigation at this point on the 5-minute chart. Sorry. Technically, no. But I wouldn't call this as a demand mitigation. So I would call this as a random reversal in the middle of nowhere. So this will function as liquidity for the deeper demand area, for this deeper 4-hour area right here. And yeah, I won't explain the further confirmations on this 4-hour zone because, yeah, you said that there's liquidity inside of this zone. We can find clear triple bottoms inside of this zone, this 4-hour zone. So there's a chance that price will flip this liquidity, but that will be the music of the future. We only have to care about this region right now. If this demand will be tapped, then we'll care about these scenarios. And I will update you about the scenarios. I will update you about the liquidity sweeping scenarios. But right now, we have to care about this kind of a scenario. We have to care about the structure that we are seeing, that we want to see. We are seeing that price is printing bearish structure. We want to trade this bearish structure. This demand zone is so far away from us. We don't really care about this. But just for the record, just to put the record straight, if this demand will be tapped, if this 4-hour demand will be tapped, then there will be a chance that price will sweep these triple bottoms from inside of this demand zone, create maybe the 4 bottom, sweep the bottoms, and change of character to the upside. So there is one more scenario when price will tap this demand zone, sweep, and reverse to the upside. This is the first scenario. Second, when price taps this demand, no sweep, change of character, cancellation to the upside. Third scenario, if price taps this demand, breaks, the candle doesn't close above this demand zone, so it closes below this overall demand zone, then that will be a break and cancellation to the downside. These are the scenarios for this 4-hour zone, but right now we care about the 50-minute and the 5-minute structure. So 5-minute structure. 5-minute structure looks exactly the same, just like on the 50-minute chart. The exact same supplies on the exact same movement, the exact same structure. So the 5-minute is the same. The 5-minute plan is the same. I will just mark this as an extreme zone. Because okay, this isn't a lunchtime zone, so this is safe to trade. If this supply can't hold price, then this supply will hold price. If this supply can't hold price, then we'll have a change of character to the upside and cancellation long scenarios. But I'm expecting a reaction on this supply and price. I believe price won't come after the extreme zone. This decision will be perfectly enough to give a confirmation. So 5-minute scenarios are exactly the same. If price can reverse after this supply zone, create a change of character here, we can execute short trades down to this demand zone. If price breaks structure here to the downside, creates another supply zone, we'll be able to execute short trades down to this demand zone. These are the scenarios. These are the scenarios that we expect on a 5-minute chart. 1 minute. On a 1-minute chart, as you can see, there was a random change of character to the upside here, which will function as liquidity for us. So here was a change of character. Basically started from this zone. Price is inside of this zone. So trading longs after the supply zone isn't really required, isn't really recommended. I won't trade longs after the supply zone. I will only trade longs if price breaks this high point and gives us a really good liquidity sweeping, liquidation, etc., good strong criteria scenario. So if price gives us a full criteria counter trade scenario, then I will trade this. Then I will trade this long scenario up to this supply zone. But mainly I will just wait for the mitigation of the supply, confirmation on it, and cancellation to the other side. This short has the highest probability to play out right now. So that's all. Basically, that's all about the timeframes. There's not much of a scenarios lining up for us. We can just simply wait for supply confirmations. We can just simply wait for breakout structures to the downside, and we can simply just wait for supply mitigations, confirmations, or the top of this 4-hour zone. These are the plans for today. Simple plans, simple, easy to wait for. Patience is key. Chini markets, I just explained this scenario. I won't explain it again. So that's all about it. Any questions, guys, about this analysis? Any questions? If or when the weak low breaks. This isn't the question. Any questions, guys? Where will be supply? This is the question that I can't answer because I can't see the future. If this low point breaks, I don't know where the supply will be. I don't know if it there will be here. I don't know if it there will be here. I don't know if it there will be here. I can't see the future. If the 50-minute down, we have an extreme supply weak zone. I don't understand this question. Sorry. If the 50-minute don't, we have an extreme supply weak zone on the 50 minutes, so not in. Yeah, this could be a supply zone too, but the change of character, the real change of character has happened from this zone. And this gave us a reaction. Basically, this is the flip zone of this demand zone. Let me just put the record straight. Here was this demand zone. The price struggled to break below, couldn't break below several times. Here was less reaction. Price created another pullback from it, and from the supply zone, this has been flipped. The overall flip of this demand has happened, and the huge inefficient movement has happened. So I will count this as a valid supply zone. I believe if price comes up to the supply zone and gives a reaction, then the trend will be continued. And if this supply can't hold price, then this supply won't be able to hold price. And if this supply breaks, then this supply will be broken too. But these are just my expectations. All we have to do is react on what we see, not predict. Guys, any questions about anything? Not just the current chart, about literally anything. Any question can be asked. If there aren't any questions, I will just stop the recording and finish. Michael?
Yeah, so that is not about the analysis. It's about how do you make a picture on a time frame and move it on the screen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just pressing the Windows, Shift, and S button. These three buttons at the same time. First the Windows, then the Shift, then the S. If I press these, I will be able to make a screenshot and place it on my screen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, guys. So yeah, more likely I will leave in this session. I won't trade in during the whole session because I have to go to make a new ID for myself. Otherwise, I won't be able to travel abroad next week. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. Please just mute yourselves. I will stop the recording.